All right, so how many kids sitting in this room are driving in the Demolition Derby today? All right. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Did you get your stick yet?
Yeah. No.
How'd you get a stick? Inspection ain't open yet.
I don't know if I can get a stick right now. No, I just put one.
All right, what we're going to cover today is I just put together an overview of a lot of things. Not a lot of things because it's endless, but some things that we've seen in the past 7 years of youth demolition derby events, and also we're going to cover some of the differences in the youth classes that we've been headlining, and also the introduction of the Jeffy's Fab Farm compacts. And then we're also going to touch base on how the Youth National Championship comes into play towards the end of the season. But we're going to move on here, and Jeff will jump in. And
where's your glasses? Not on your head.
Oh, I lost my glasses.
In your pocket.
You're right.
We're good, Frankie. It's okay, we're good. We're good.
So the first screen you're going to see here is just a couple photos I randomly picked. Not randomly, but these two young drivers here that started participating in the youth program. As you see, anybody see what they're both holding? Trophies. All right. So we really not only wanted to see a youth program thrive and promoters carry it, we're helping build winners at all of you on and off the track. All right. The second picture you see, this little cornball here. Anybody know who that is?
Scotty.
Scotty. All right. He started in this program when he was 12 years old. Obviously, he's ran a lot of derbies, won a lot of derbies. So he's another product of it. All right. And then this is a photo of me and my son, Chance Smith, where me and him got to run a team show together in Florida. And for all you parents sitting here, the trek that you're on with your kids and the things that you do at home, the time you spend together, someday if you get a chance to share the track with your son or daughter, it's an amazing thing. And then as you learn, your kids start being on the track more than you. So prepare yourself for that, because it's just one of those things that happen. That wasn't a good day for us. I had a Cadillac that kind of folded up like a cheap shirt immediately. We had to make the decision just to kind of pack it up after that. But anyway, win or lose, we had a great experience together, and that's something that you can't replace.
No.
So, youth classes identified, just so everybody's aware of what, and there's youth classes all over this country and Canada, so this doesn't necessarily explain how they all are, but the ones that we're involved in, we have the SMW Youth Full Size, which has been widely circulated. For example, Bash for Cash, some other places. It's a highly competitive class. Make no mistake, all right? And over the past few years, we had people that wanted to maybe come into a bracket that was a little less competitive for say. Maybe you're just starting out. So we introduced the Cadet Full Size, which is more of an entry-level novice class, all right? And as you can see, there's some differences here that we put up there to kind of identify what separates these. And then the introduction of the Fab Farm Cadet Compact, okay? The biggest difference you see between these is honestly, the drivetrains, the competitive builds. This helps advance build skills. It helps get you introduced to a lot of higher end parts. It's not all about the parts whenever you start driving, and you're going to learn this. But it's a great place to start if you want to challenge yourself against a lot of good competitors. Because of the age group, a lot of these kids have already been competing, so they've got some runway under them where they've got some previous experience. The cadet full size, a little less of a build, actually a lot less, more of an entry level. So if you're not sure if you want to try this, I mean, how many kids in this room think you're going to run demolition derbies the rest of your life? All right.
Pretty good number.
Yeah, all of them. All of them. We hope you do.
Wonder who gets their bell rung today and maybe changes their decision.
Yeah. So if you're looking to test the water for say, it's a great place to jump in. And if you have, and I'm not very skilled in the compact world, so Jeff will kind of cover that, but you know, with the compacts, what goes with that, Jeff, for entry level?
Well, basically the compacts, we started this because if you're doing entry level, like Casey said, it's not about the parts, it's about the fundamentals, it's about finding the car, getting a car, and 99% of the time with the compacts, it's a running, driving, viable demolition derby car with minimal investment needed to hit the track. The fundamentals of building the car, stripping the car, spending time with the family, networking, you know, being part of the community, hitting the track, getting seat time, learning the fundamentals. It really doesn't matter if it's a tractor, boat, whatever you want to work on. Big car, small car, but it's basic. There's pretty much any car that you can grab that would be a compact. If you apply the knowledge and skill, the right amount of ingredients to any car, you can hit the track, and the compacts is just, it's really, really simple to hit the track, learn the fundamentals, and get the skills required to run any class, anytime, anywhere.
Okay. So that's the biggest thing we just want everybody to be aware of, because we've had people suggest rule changes for one class or another. So this class here is to build winners. All of them are, okay? But this is going to be a competitive class. It's also the one that we headline at the national championship. And I think last year we had 52 cars, okay? And it was an awesome show. I don't know how many people got to see it, but it was an amazing show. The other thing is everybody stays busy on the track, and it's amazing. So instead of trying to bring this class down a couple notches or change things, I mean, we've had it working for 5+ years and it's worked well. So we introduced this. So this is, and if you're not necessarily ready for this, start here. There's some promoters here this weekend that are talking about adding this to some of their shows. So your guys' job, other than driving a derby car today, the best thing to do with your parents is go talk to these promoters and ask them, how many youth shows are you having? Are you having a cadet class? Are you having this? Okay? That way you guys got some places to run. Now the great news is most of the promoters that are here are carrying youth classes. All right, and a lot of them are nominating promoters for the Youth National Championship. All right, everybody here heard about that event?
Who here hasn't heard about the new Youth National Championship? You guys haven't, or you have heard? You haven't heard about it? Matthew?
They're good liars.
This I know.
We have not.
All right, well, you're gonna hear. You're going to hear about it. So anybody have any questions on these three classes or what the realm of them is? Okay. And just to give you guys an example, a couple of years ago we were talking to promoters about youth classes, and people were like, oh, you should do this rule set, this rule set. And I asked a simple question to the one promoter out of New York. I said, how many youth cars did you have show up at your last event? He said 45. I said, well, I don't need to know anything about your rules. You had 45 youth show up, roll with it, okay? So don't get hung up on that. So we're gonna talk a lot today about safety inside and outside of the car, on the track, off the track. That means while you're competing, while you're in the pit area, while you're at your garage at home, okay? How many people here put safety as their number one priority?
Very good.
Well, that's a good start.
Yep. It should be every hand in the room.
Because you know what happens if you get injured? You're benched. You're not playing the game, right? So the other thing is you get injured bad enough, you ain't going to school, you ain't doing the other stuff you need to do. Likewise with parents and your builder helpers, okay? I'm pretty sure one thing about the Demolition Derby crowd, we're all proud to get up and go to work every day.
Absolutely.
I don't know too many people that don't in this sport. But if you can't get up and go to work or you can't go to school, that's the last thing you want. So we're going to talk about 3 areas that we have seen that you really need to pay attention to and put some effort in the Demolition Derby builds, okay? And Jeff's going to jump in and talk about a lot of stuff here and there because he also has a very vast background in drag racing and some other motorsports. I do as well. So we're going to talk about things that we see in other motorsports that we feel you should consider in the Demolition Derby world to help keep you safe. So the first thing we're going to cover is fuel systems, okay? How many people here today are driving a car with a 4.6 Ford engine in it? Okay?
How many people don't know what engine they have in their car?
How many people don't care what engine you got? As long as it runs. So. All right, the reason I ask that question is because there's some big differences in fuel systems from high pressure systems to a conventional pump. You want to cover some of that, Jeff?
And as we move into the future and move into these different vehicles, we don't go from, I would like to say, a more subtle fuel system with these carbureted cars to these fuel injected cars. And this is a fuel cell that Robbie Crittenden builds from Simple Solution that takes the factory forward sending unit. And these have quick connect fittings. They require a special self-locking attaching fuel line. And, oh, I lost my mic. Oh, there we go. And this is really one part that Casey and I feel very strongly about, that fuel connections are something that you don't scrimp on, something that you don't take for granted. So Robbie provides some really cool parts. I provide some really cool parts. Braided fuel hose, high pressure hose, no hose clamps, proper fuel lines, even adaptable fittings so that you can run, say, a hydraulic fuel line that's impermeable to sparks and leaks and pressure and stuff like that. This is something that outside of our sport is number one priority: fuel, fires, fire prevention and stuff like that. Spending, and I hate for it to be about the cost, but unfortunately in this case, it's, what is your life worth? What is your skin worth? What are your eyes worth? That type of thing. But what it comes down to is, a $20 piece of hose and some clamps here. Is that our backup? Okay. Thank you, Mark. A $20 piece of hose and some clamps here is not what we like to see, and propel this to the future. Proper connections, proper lines, definitely some safety precautions need to be taken here. We're very fortunate that we don't deal with a lot of major fires. We're very fortunate we don't deal with a lot of injuries, nationwide. But this is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be on the forefront of building in the shop and building these cars.
Okay. Yeah, and a high pressure fuel pump, to put it in perspective, is basically a flamethrower if it's not staying the hoses on the connections, okay? The most flammable thing you have in your car is the fuel. All right, so you want to keep it in the tank, you want to keep it in the line, you want to keep it going to the aspiration system, whether it's fuel injection or whether it's carbureted, all right? Now this tank here is an aluminum tank, and real quick I want to cover some misconceptions. I'm just going to give you my opinion. I could use big fancy words like elasticity, elongation, stuff like that in the metal world and engineering, but a lot of people say, oh, I'm an aluminum tank. Why would you run an aluminum tank? Aluminum's weak. Well, I personally would run an aluminum tank before I'd run a stainless steel tank. All right. Well, aluminum, you can push on it, you can hit it with a sharp object. Depending upon the grade, it doesn't puncture as easily. Okay, it'll stretch a little bit. All right. Secondly, it is corrosion resistant, but it is an oxidizable material, which means it can oxidize and create its own form of corrosion inside. Stainless steel tanks, I think if they're built correctly and out of the right gauge, they're just fine. Carbon steel tank, nothing wrong with them. Most of your major automobiles in the world were built with steel fuel tanks, okay? As long as you keep them clean, keep the water out, keep the fuel in it, they don't rust and corrode. So mounting, where this all goes is mounting the fuel tank, okay, is one of the most important things you can do, all right? Gas tank protectors, if they're allowed in your class, definitely recommend them. But always make sure your fuel tank's mounted properly. Now keep one thing in mind, derby cars bend and they twist, right? So if you're bolting it to the floor, try to make sure that you got it mounted solid, but you don't want it stretching the tank, pulling down over a tunnel, basic things. The other thing that we've seen guys mount these with like on a rubber puck, like an air compressor, but with a bolt that goes completely through it, so it's an isolator as far as a little bit of movement, all right? There's a lot that goes on in the demolition derby world. You can't always dictate how your car is gonna work and what's gonna happen, but good fuel connections, a well-made tank is a good start. This is a rollover valve. Anybody ever see one of these before? Okay. I don't care what kind of fuel tank you have. If you have a vent in it, see a lot of people just run a hose.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing to keep fuel from coming out and you roll over, guess what's happening? That hose is just pouring all the fuel out of this tank, all over the roof of your car, all over the track. You hit a big bump and you got a short hose on it, fuel's gonna come out. This alleviates that. You can buy them anywhere from $13 and up from Summit Racing or one of the racing suppliers. I recommend them highly. All the fuel tanks that we've done, we put them in it when we ship them. So we talk about batteries, AGM batteries versus wet batteries. An AGM battery is what they call an advanced glass mat, which it doesn't have a fluid in it made of acid. It's a saturated wrap that goes around the lead cells. All right. Wet battery is basically lead plates and has an encased casing with acid in it to help produce electricity out of the battery. Benefit AGM, you can crack it wide open like an egg and nothing's going to pour out or splash all over you. Unlike a wet battery, where if you crack it open, the acid's coming out, all right? I don't know if anybody ever seen what a chemical burn looks like, but they ain't pretty and they don't feel good. Also, less explosive than an AGM. Anybody ever have a battery pop in a car from cutting on a torch or whatever? that happens.
Yeah, a lead acid battery, when it dissipates, when you're running it down, it actually off-gases hydrogen gas. So it's very explosive. And the other thing that most people don't realize is if you fully contain a battery, a lead acid battery, and you fully contain that, it needs to be vented as well, because that turns into a little hydrogen bomb. Very, very dangerous. And the more you dissipate that battery, the more off-gas it gives.
Okay. So we're going to talk about battery box placement, tank placement. I think everybody has a good idea where to put your fuel tank. Most rules say, in the back seat area, etc. Battery placement. I'm going to tell you right now, and I've seen this a lot, it is not a good idea to put an acid wet battery right in front of your grill on a dash bar. Okay? I don't know how many people have that done to their car or not. Everyone says, well, I don't have the space. Most rule sets allow you to mount that in a rear floor pan behind the seat. Okay? Well, battery cables are too expensive. You mean to tell me you spent all this money on this Derby car and everything else and you couldn't afford another 40 bucks for a little bit longer battery cable? You need to reprioritize things. And when we get to some photos, and I'll bring this up now and I'll ask the question, we get to some photos, they're not to scare anybody and they're not horrible in my book. I've seen some horrible things, but they're to get you guys to understand it realistically. There is a possibility of injury in the sport, and these are some things that we're showing you to reduce that risk, all right? Everybody agrees they signed up to participate in a pretty crazy sport, right? It's kind of like boxing. You choose to get in that ring and you get your teeth knocked out. It's part of the program. So, battery placement. In any car with 2 people in it, remember this, 2 people have to get in the car, 2 people have to get out of the car at some point, or EMS has to remove 2 people out of the car, all right? So easier you can get in and get out of the car with no obstruction, the better, all right? But wet batteries, try to keep them out of the compartment, keep them covered. Another thing, don't ground your battery to the gas tank protector or the fuel tank bolt, okay? I'm not gonna go into an educational process on how electricity works, but everybody understands that DC needs a ground. There's a ground and a positive, right? And everything travels
Through it.
So in theory, if you ground your fuel tank full of a flammable liquid, what's going to happen at some point? Woof. Kaboom. Yeah, a lot of things. So keep that in mind. Also, routing your battery cables, make sure they're clear and away from the tank, all right? And a lot of people say, oh, anybody knows that. Why would you do that? Well, because when you're trying to hurry up, get through a derby or whatever goes on, maybe you have people helping you. Always take a look at what the people helping you have done. Anybody ever been in a situation where helper got the blame for something? It's always good to have a helper too, that way you can blame them.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
I didn't put too many wire ties on there. Okay, moving on to seat belts and gear, okay? Everybody wear a seat belt?
Yes.
If you don't wear one, I'm gonna beat you on one. I don't know of a motorsport in existence that has 4 wheels on the ground that you compete with a checkered flag where you're not expected to wear a seatbelt, or if it's a good idea not to wear one, okay? So, seatbelts, you need them for the driver, you need them for the passenger too, okay? Because if you think you're just out there for a joyride, if you're one of the in-car coaches, I got news for you. More passenger doors get hit than any other part of the car. Just a fact. Okay? Mating ends. When you're putting seat belts in the car, pretty much everybody strips your car clean, right? You know what, one of the things that people miss the most when they build a car? Bingo. Forgot the seat belt.
Both ends. Both ends of the seatbelt.
Yep. So make sure you got seat belts. The best thing to do is have an adjustable seat belt, because just about every one of you are outside of the demographic of where a car manufacturer is expected the average adult to fit into a driver's seat to drive the car. Okay? They weren't, trust me, when Ford had the Crown Victoria out for the model release, they weren't looking down the road at Youth Demolition Derby or Chevy or Mopar or anybody. So keep that in mind. When you're building a car, make sure everything fits the driver, all right? We're going to talk about helmets, visors, and eye protection. Everybody does have a helmet, right? If you're driving, you should have a helmet. Because if you don't have a helmet, you won't be driving. With a secure strap, okay? And helmets are just like socks or shoes. There's all kinds of them, correct?
You're correct.
All right? So in just about any motorsport that involves a steering wheel and 4 wheels, you'll generally see a helmet that is smooth around the outside, doesn't have any long visors or anything like that. Now, NASCAR for years, guys used to run a little short visor about yay long, motocross helmets, etc. So, to put it real simply, invest in a good helmet, okay? Because there's a couple things they ain't learned how to replace on people yet, and one of them's the brain, okay? Buy a good helmet. In my opinion, I don't like wearing a helmet with a motocross style visor in a car. The reason why is you got about a 6-7 inch lever on the end of your head. Okay? I've seen people go back over a seat and their visor gets stuck in the roof. Okay? And I'm not telling you to go back to the pits, smash the hammer off the helmet, you know, the visor off the helmet your parents just bought you. I'm asking you to take that into consideration and give it some thought. Trophy trucks, World Outlaw late models, drag racing.
No visors.
Visor?
No.
Okay. Reason for that, you're in a driver's compartment, you have a lot of things you can hit your head on, especially if you know, take a barrel roll, a lot of stuff's going on in there, okay? And if you don't believe me, you just have your buddy put on your helmet and you get back here and grab that visor and shake it all around. See how his head feels, all right? But do your research on helmets, okay? Secondly, fire suits, all right? How many people have ever invested in a fire suit or a fire jacket? Okay.
We got ours. Yours is a suit, mine's a jacket.
Okay. I wear a suit just because I'm not near as fast as probably most of you young guys. So for me to get out of a car, it takes me a little longer. So I like the extra time. Okay. That's what these things do. They buy you time. All right. You can buy jackets. How much were the jackets you were selling last year, Frankie?
I think the used was about $125, $135.
Do you know what rating those were? Were those a 5?
I don't remember.
Or a 2?
Yeah.
It's not an exact science, but basically what this is do you know what your suit is?
I think it's a higher level because it's got
a 5 or a
I can't read it.
15. How they rate them is you can get a fire jacket from a 1 to a 20. And it's not exactly how they rate them, but basically a 1 is 1 second and 20 is 20 seconds from the fire getting to your skin. This is a 15. This gives me 15 seconds. Now this only protects my upper body. I don't wear gloves. I should, but I don't. Casey's suit's probably a 15. That gives Casey 15 seconds of direct fire before he gets hurt in a perfect world.
Okay.
They're very, very affordable. One thing I can recommend though for what we do, which is unique to our motorsport, is steam. That you can run a raincoat underneath this, because this will still burn you if you get hot water on you. It will absorb water. So it doesn't prevent that, but it does prevent the fire. They're very, very affordable, and run them for a few years, let them get really dirty, messy, get another one. It's huge, huge peace of mind. When I really stepped up my derby game, and I'm sure Casey was in the same mindset, this is just as important as putting gas in your car, you know, checking the truck, checking the trailer. You grab your fire jacket and you take it with you, or your suit.
Yeah. So if you haven't ever considered anything like this, make the consideration. Our sport's one of the only motorsports that has some of the most limited basic requirements for safety. I mean, most rule sets say as long as you got a helmet, some eye protection, and a seat belt, you're good to go. There's not too many other motorsports that have that minimum of a requirement.
Next to none.
Right.
next to none.
So before you go spending thousands of dollars on a new engine or something, think about this, because it doesn't matter what kind of car you got, they all burn some kind of fuel. All right. So fire, Jeff's going to talk about some fire extinguishers and some things that are very helpful. How many people have fire extinguishers at home in your garage where you build a car? How many people have ever had to use one? Okay. If you don't have them at home in your garage where you're welding and cutting and everything else, get some. Fire department's only maybe a few minutes away, but that few minutes makes a difference in case mama comes home and finds her car burned up in the garage in the bay beside where you was building your derby car. All right. Also protect your home, everything else. Pit area out here when you're working on the car. Beware of your flammable stuff, your batteries, your fuel tanks, your extra fuel, stuff beside you in the guy's pit. All right.
How many people, when they load up their car and they take it to the track, how many people think of throwing this in the back of their truck? Not too many. I stopped and grabbed these on the way here. We got a 2-pack of, I think these are 12-pounders.
Yeah.
2-pack for $40. If anybody walks through the exhibitor hall right now, you can see right inside the man door of my enclosed trailer, there's always a fire extinguisher in my trailers. And that doesn't come from my derby background, that comes from my racing background. We do not leave any trailer, open trailer, enclosed trailer. We don't leave the farm, we don't pull out on the road without a fire extinguisher in the truck or the trailer. One of the big things that a lot of people don't realize is pile stuff in the car, because the car has, empty space. You throw stuff in there, something bounces, shorts on your battery going down the road. Next thing you're driving down the road, the back of the trailer's on fire. This can save your investment from burning to the ground, literally for $20. I've seen it before, and a lot of what we do with all our cars, I don't care what motorsports it is when you load the car and you're getting ready to leave, always disconnect the battery and cover it so nothing can fall across the battery and arc it if your terminals are open. But even if you got one a year and threw it in your truck for $20, I've got 5 in the shop because I just have to. Things get a little crazy, a lot going on. But my trucks and my trailers, there's a fire extinguisher in every single one. So.
All right, anybody got any questions on safety equipment or recommendations or have an opinion?
And at any time, you can reach out to any derby driver if you have questions about, where do you put your battery, why do you put it there, and they're going to explain different things. It's going to be about their build, but at some point, you're going to talk to a veteran driver about placement, and it's going to be, my buddy had a battery blow up. My buddy had the door short against it. My buddy had, there's always a story where batteries go bad. Thankfully, not so much, like I said, with fuel issues, but we definitely come across a lot more batteries than, even just an old battery. An old battery can be a ticking time bomb. They sulfate and they will short just sitting there. So you can always ask a veteran driver about safety. So.
Okay. So the other thing you guys can do here with all these promoters are out here set up in that is if you run a class where maybe some of the rule sets restrain area, sidebars in the car, etc., things like that, talk to them and say, hey, look, this is when we're building a car, this will make it better for us as occupants in that car. All right. In our SMW rule set, one of the things it says is nothing can be in the driver's compartment except for what you need, like as far as your pedals, etc. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But structural, when you guys are putting your cars together, whether it be a compact, a full size, whether it's a gas tank protector car or not, cage construction, just about every youth class that I know of allows you to have some kind of cage in it, correct, Frankie? And actually, every demolition derby class should allow you to put a basic 4-point cage in it, as far as I'm concerned. So when you build it, all right, number one, how many experienced welders we got here? No? Okay. Any
Couple hands going up.
Any of your dads or moms experienced welders?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, my dad.
All right.
My dad.
Hey, somebody's got to get it done. All right. When you're welding structural tubing to sheet metal, it's a challenge. Okay? And the more you do it, the better you get at it. So your 4 points of the cage, make sure they're fit well, make sure they're welded well. I'm an advocate for all these young people learning how to build their cars and participating, but there's some areas where they should definitely be supervised, and that is putting a cage together, fitting it, welding it, and making sure it's intact in the corners. I've seen cages shift in cars, seen bars break off. You don't want to create a bigger hazard inside the car. When you get to other motorsports that have interior cages and other safety equipment, there's actually a little more in-depth inspection and requirements on them.
Is Nick still here? Nick, are you back there? Nick's a perfect example of he had an angel on his shoulder one day because the halo bar broke off and just about took his head off. So, yeah, he's very lucky from some welding gone bad, some cage fitment gone bad. So.
Rollover bars, if they're not welded, at least bolted to the
And they got to be at least bolted to the roof, wired to the roof, something, because you're lucky to be standing here and because of some shoddy cage, and it can be scary. That's probably the scariest one I've seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And a lot of people get, the first thing a lot of people do when they read a rule set, the first thing they start doing is looking at where they can exercise areas or get a little more out of it. Or cheat.
Stretch.
So
Putting their safety aside for rule.
for something,
Yes.
that they feel is more important, and there's nothing more important. If you ain't got this stuff glued together good, it can actually hurt you more than not having it. All right. Clean compartments, no edges, etc. All right. When you build your car, would anybody ever want to get into a dryer full of bricks? Bad idea. Because then we're going to be bouncing off you, you're going to be bouncing off them. The compartment of a car is no different. Okay? Elbows, hands, feet, knees. You got some big honking gussets in them corners. Think about this, all right? Battery box right between your feet, all right? Sidebar right here, okay? Look, you're gonna get bounced around in that car. Padding, no sharp edges.
Sharp edges. Everything out of the doors. Something that's miscellaneous inside the door, get rid of it because it can get slammed and poked through and become a projectile. And your body, you may not think, oh, I can't reach that far. I have a picture from about 12 years ago. I'm a chubby guy and I'm short. And there's a picture of me nailing a guy against the wall. My head is out the windshield about 3 inches. And sitting in that car, there's no way I thought my head would go that far. So you stretch and move and get knocked around, and your body goes places you don't even think it's going to go. So you literally sit in the car, reach around. I do it. You do it. You sit in the car, look. That zip tie might cut me. That's too close. I'm going to move this. I move that. And if you watch any professional, they will sit in their car. They'll run the lap in their head. They'll run the run through their head. They'll think about things, and you can do the same thing in your derby car. You sit in there, and I reach the shifter. Am I straining to reach that? Could my arm hit this? Could a little bit of padding, pool noodles, seat foam. It goes a long, long way.
Fuel shut off.
Yep.
On the tank.
Battery disconnect.
So,
Being able to get at things that can hurt you. It's really, really important.
yeah, not only do you need to be able to start the car and drive the car, you got to be able to shut it down and shut it off if you need to, okay? So then we move into inside door plates and door skins. Most U classes allow extra protection in the occupant areas, okay? Here's a door skin, another simple solution product. You'd think we were getting paid by Robbie, but we're not.
Yeah.
It just happens that he has the products that we wanted to show you. In an inside door plate, when it comes to sheet metal punctures, the regulators and the doors that people don't like to take out, that's all a secondary accident waiting
Super
to happen.
hazardous. The window winders, which you don't have that much anymore, but the window winders, the regulators, anything in there, little brace. that's just riveted in there. You don't think about it. Well, that door gets bent, those rivets pop out, and now you've got a 6-inch blade that can come through the top of the door.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
And I've seen guys take like 6-inch channel, put it on the outside of a car, flange out with 2 bolts in it through the sheet metal. I'm not a fan of that. A smooth door skin on the outside, it's properly welded, is going to give you a lot of protection. An inside door plate that comes off the cage bar or side bar down to the rocker panel gives you additional puncture protection from any sheet metal.
And I'm gonna, Robbie, this drops in between the lip of the door where the door gasket goes and the door itself, right? So you put this in and then close the door. Stitch weld it. Yep. And it fits. I think it's a great idea. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's
very, very simple,
self-fitting, and easy to weld.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But that's one of those items where also promoters, if you don't offer it, it should be in every class, in my opinion. Halos and window bars. We just heard a little bit about halo bars, okay? How many people ever see videos with derby cars on their lid? Everybody's been to a track, seen a derby car on its lid. A couple of things can happen. The car can roll over, and you got just the collapse of the roof from the rollover, or you also have the chance of another car colliding. So a halo bar is a very valuable piece of safety equipment, but also has to be attached properly. You know, it's part of a structural piece of the cage. Another area where I see promoters, some get hung up on what you can do there. There's a few areas of a car build where I think it should be very lenient. That's one of them. Window bars, okay? I think no matter what, they should be allowed in every class. It's biggest opening in your car. So if you got the biggest opening, it's the place where things can most likely come into. Just happens to be the occupant area. So cars end up on cars, hoods come up, a lot of things go on, okay?
Wheels and windshields.
Wheels and windshields.
Wheels and windshields. Spinning wheels and windshields. Carving somebody up on the hood and they're trying to get off. I've seen many wheels inside windshields. There needs to be at least a half a divider into that windshield.
Yeah. Rear window bars. You know, if it's a non-gas tank protector class, there should be something in that opening to help keep something from coming into the gas tank area, okay? Once again, when you look at our motorsport and the stuff that goes on and how we construct things, some of it looks a little sketchy, all right? But those are items that should be looked at as a safety item first, car strength secondary. I've seen people do some crazy stuff. I've had people ask us, hey, can you build me a 1/2-inch thick fuel tank? Well, immediately I think I know why that person wants a 1/2-inch thick fuel tank. My answer was, can we build it? Yes. Will we build it? No. Why? Because you're stupid. You want to bolt it into the car and use your fuel tank to reinforce the car.
It's a structure.
It's stupid. Not going to sugarcoat that. Okay? If you think there's a check big enough or a trophy tall enough that that's worth doing something that's stupid. Third time I used that word?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just it. Everybody agree with that? All right. All right. Trust me, I've done my stupid things in my life. So anyway, anybody got any questions on these areas? These are just some areas that we wanted you to see. Now we're going to move into some photographs. I'm going to ask a question. Some of them ain't real pretty, but it's something that's not brought into the sport. It's not here to scare you. It's here to make you aware of some things. Is there anybody in this room that's not okay with seeing a picture with an injury, such as a leg laceration or a burn? All right, so by nobody raising your hand, I'm going to assume that you're okay with that. And we're going to move on because I think it's the next slide. Okay. And I slimmed these down a little bit to make them a little less intrusive. These are the most common injuries that I'm gonna say in years of demolition derby in general that I've seen, in the ones that we see in the youth classes, you know what the good news is? It's always the passenger that gets hurt. Maybe that's not good news, but what I'm saying is passengers in classes where there's 2 people in the car, the passenger usually ends up with the most risk of injury. Reason being, everybody's heard a million times you shouldn't hit the driver's door, and you shouldn't, because you're a driver, you have control of that car, and hitting somebody in the driver's door generally doesn't mechanically hurt that car, but it can hurt the driver. Okay? Leg injuries, we've seen the most firsthand.
Casey, the most injuries, as Casey said, that I've seen, with 2 people in the car are from the knee down. These are real pictures that we have ran across. Definitely your custody and your battery lock. We've had to make it mandatory for some reason that the battery lock be behind the seat. And it is because of these real true injuries that we have had. These are pictures from some of our shows that it's a real thing. The passengers from the knees down get injured in the battery.
Yeah, so you'll see that leg, ankle, foot, majority of the injuries that we see, most of them are caused by door sheet metal, something in the door that shouldn't have been there, a bumper coming through the door, or a gusset or some kind of structural piece that was put in that car that you never really thought about. In the leading, battery boxes on the floor, okay? I mean, it's just not a good idea to have your foot tied up. IndyCar racing, ankle and foot and leg injuries are the biggest factor that comes out of those crashes. Any major combat conflict in the world, leg injuries are one of the leadest causing mortality rates of combat injuries because of the arteries and stuff you have in your leg. We're going to move into burns, okay? This is a girl that had 3rd-degree burns all over her side of her face, okay? I'm not going to get into where or what, how that happened. Burn is very painful. We're in a motorsport where you have a lot of hot stuff, mainly radiator fluid, okay? Robbie brought up a thing he was talking about. Somebody somewhere was running some kind of oil. What was that, Robbie? Okay. So, look, I'm going to make this real simple. Since the beginning of internal combustion engines, coolant and liquid-cooled engines has basically been water-based, correct?
Correct.
All right, there's a reason for that. It's most trouble-free, works the best, just how it is. You think putting anything like some kind of oil-based product in a cooling system is a good idea? Yes, an excavator has a hydraulic cooler on it for the hydraulics. Completely different. You have an oil-based product or liquid in that radiator and it starts spraying out. As it becomes a spray through the air, it's now aerating, taking oxygen with it, and then what happens? Woof. You got a flamethrower on your hands. Very unfortunate thing that went on with that, okay? Water's hot enough. Don't add fire to it, right? So I know some of you are sitting there thinking, who in the world would do that? Well, hey, everybody in this sport's always looking for the next best thing that's going to just be a game changer. Well, don't get too far away from things because the basics have worked. So when you start talking about hot water, okay, big gaping holes in firewalls, this and that, you got that radiator out there. Sooner or later, you're going to have a punctured radiator, blowed hose, or whatever. Long sleeves, some kind of protection from that. I've seen cars neighboring a car that are spitting fluids onto somebody in a driver's compartment.
Yeah.
Are you going to make it perfect to where you're never going to have that as a risk? Highly unlikely. But be aware of those things. Fuel, hot water, transmission fluid, transmission lines. look, them lines get hot. So,
And transmission fluid vapor is extremely flammable. Extremely flammable. So if you're in that car and that transmission doesn't want to work and it just seems to be laboring and barely moving along and you've got your foot to the floor, let up. It's not worth it to have that transmission blow and vaporize and catch fire. It's just not worth it.
I'm sure everybody's seen a good transmission fire in a sport, right? Oh yeah, that white smoke starts pouring out, your car's not moving and you just got it held down. I'm telling you right now, it ain't gonna fix itself. Okay, the other thing, when you two are in the car, all right, this is part of the driver's meeting, so we're gonna cover this now. When you're in that car and something happens to your car and it quits, be aware there's still a demolition derby going on, okay? As long as your stick is still up, you're legal to be hit, okay? Most likely, a driver's not going to waste a shot if he's got a good coach in the car, if that car is already struggling, or maybe he's going to take that time to push you up into a corner. But if you're both down there staring at your transmission tunnel because you think you're going to miraculously fix something, there's still a derby going on, you're going to test them two helmets, all right? The other thing, don't stick your hands through the steering wheel, okay? All right? Because you'll probably get them broke. Yep, because people are generally, what's the best thing to hit on a derby car on the track? The wheels. Yepper. All right, so keep that in mind. Door penetration, you can see this right here. Okay, that's where a man's foot and leg was. There's not a lot of space there. Well, let me tell you, there was an injury that caused him probably, 6-7 months of recovery, Mark, for Mark Klein, due to infection, okay? Look, all these old cars we get, there've been a lot of stuff on them, okay? Probably bacteria and things that would be used for chemical warfare, but if you get cut by some of that, you ever hear of a tetanus shot? Well, sometimes that don't cut it. You can get an infection, it can be very bad. This is a bumper, okay? This is a passenger compartment. That's a bumper sticking through a cowl. It came in through the inner fender and into the firewall. So if you can dictate what's gonna happen out on that track, you can't. There's a lot of stuff that happens. It's called Murphy's Law, okay? So, there's another one when you hear me tell the passengers about getting hit in the door. I'm telling you right now, and you hear it in the driver's meeting, I say, be careful, remember what you signed up for, okay? You're probably gonna get hit in the door. Drivers, treat the passenger door like there is a human being sitting behind it, okay?
Mason.
You should. I can't make you do what you should do, but keep that in consideration. Someday it might be your door. Yeah, shrug them shoulders. I'm pretty tough. I can take it. What makes a winner?
Old sandbag.
That's going to be highly debatable by a lot of people in this sport. But I'll agree with you. People that win by surviving, in my opinion, aren't winners. Because I want to see whoever wins. When they take that checkered flag, there's no doubt that they won. Anybody else got a suggestion what makes a winner?
The last man standing.
The last man standing.
Being a good sport.
Being a good sport.
That's a good one.
I like that one too. How many people think you're going to win every show you enter? I know a lot of dang good drivers out there for 35 years. And none of them won every show that they've been in. So,
It's on the car and walks away.
yep. So there's going to be great days in this sport, and there's going to be days that ain't so great. But the one thing you ought to remember is that sportsmanship, because you want to know something? A lot of people are watching you, okay? You might not think it, but at your young age, you have an influence, all right? How many of you kids ran Power Wheels? Every dang one of you, right? And now you're here. Well, there's a bunch of little Power Wheels kids here this weekend that are like, I'm going to do that someday. You probably all look at your dads or an uncle and say, I'm going to go compete at this event someday with him, right? And we want you to. It's why you're here. You're the future of this. But carry yourself, okay? A lot of eyes are on you, not only on the track, but off the track. Be an example, okay? You're already doing something in this world that hundreds of thousands of people ain't got the guts to do, and that's fill an entry form and compete in a demolition derby, okay? So that's something to really hold tight to yourself and know that you're achieving some goals as a young person. And someone else might be willing to buy a ticket and watch, but they ain't willing to put in the work and the dedication that it takes to get here. Because it just didn't happen, right? Been a lot of work to get here? Okay. Can you add to that, or?
I can't.
I just talked about the power to influence and its responsibility. It is a responsibility. You all carry that, okay? No matter where you're at, whether it's at school, whether it's on this derby track out here in this expo hall. Also, these young officials, they have a responsibility to make sure your car is safe, make sure it's built to the rules. So remember that. Sportsmanship and influence, you're going to carry that through all different parts of your life, all right? Parents, how many,
Oh, you
somebody
dying?
turn that off? Oh, there we go.
Is it dying?
I'm a parent. 3 minutes? Okay. We're going to go through this. Be the example, okay? We've all been in this sport, and it's rough and it's tough, and we all get emotional, and we've seen stuff from high to low. Remember who's watching. We all learn from somebody. Require sportsmanship, okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, you'll make, how do I say this? You'll meet enough people on the track that want to get back at you sometime enough without giving them extra reasons. So shake that hand. They did the same amount of work as you did to show up. Encourage camaraderie. Make new friends. Okay? It's a great opportunity to make new friends, meet new people. Set goals. Okay? It's going to get you through the rest of your life. All right? That's about all I got for this, so we're going to wrap it up and move on. Anybody got any questions? You come see me, Jeff, Mark, anybody. We'll let Mark say what he's got to say here.
New drivers, if you're running today, don't go anywhere. New drivers, if you're running today, don't go anywhere. Robbie has got an announcement to make. It involves the car.